Welcome to the BCS Codex, your one-stop podcast for anything and everything human race. This is episode 7. Hi humans, welcome back to the BCS Codex, your one-stop podcast for anything and everything human race, which is your one stop where we talk about anything that's relevant to our species. It could be from science to economics, philosophy, AI, anything that affects us in a major way. And for this week, episode 7, I wanted to take a topic that's important to not only Indians, if you're watching, primarily it is you, but also for people all around the world, because this is something that affects us humans like pretty, it's all around us. We cannot escape it. It is something that destroys lives for a fact. Now, this is where I let you take a guess at what I'm going to talk about. Well, you have clicked the thumbnail, so I don't need to go forward with that. It's not a nuclear bomb, it's not AI, it's not a weapon of mass destruction. Well, it is kind of. And yes, people, I'm talking about the fact that people, or rather human beings, cheat. And when I say cheat, I don't mean they cheat in exams or they have cheat codes to certain things in lives or in video games. I am actually referring to infidelity, which is a word that describes when two people or more than one people are involved in a relationship and they have these affairs outside of that, which we know as extramarital affairs. And extramarital is confined to marriage, but even without except marriage, we also have relationships where people actually cheat. These relationships might not be legally defined as being relationship, but well, it constitutes a relationship between two people. So why people cheat? Why do people cheat on each other? What is the reason? Because you see, cheating is something that destroys life. That's a fact in a society. It's something that's been bothering the Western culture for quite a few decades now. They haven't done anything about it, and it goes back to centuries. I mean, cheating on each other is not something that's very new or in the 21st century. Cheating on your partner, or infidelity, dates back to thousands of years ago. People back then were also cheating on each other. It's just the way things are in our body, in our brain, and that's why we are here to understand that. So all in all, this episode will start off with talking about a study that was done, so that pertains to psychology, and we'll slowly move on our way from psychology to neuroscience. Psychology explains you the behavior of people, but neuroscience actually goes down to the thumbtacks to understanding fundamentally why people do what they do. So psychology explains the cause and effect, the behavior of people, but still, what underlies psychology? That's neuroscience. It's the chemicals in our brain that make us do things we want, we do not want, our needs, our wants, anything and everything. It goes around neuroscience. So let's start off the episode with this study that was done a few years back, which was, well, it was a study, but it was presented as an article which is titled, "What do people do, say and feel when they have affairs, question mark, associations between extradyadic infidelity motives with behavioral, emotional and sexual outcomes." And of course, if you have kids watch, I don't think so kids are watching this, but this is definitely for adults, because there's going to be some explicit talk, like not in the obscene manner, but in the manner that we are adults, so we need to talk about the sexual part as well. So just a warning for you, if you have kids watching with you or whatever. So this was done by Dylan Seltoman, Justin Garcia, and Irene Sapelas. Now, this investigation included 495 people, 88% of whom identified as heterosexual, which is majority, right? We consider the majority. Homosexuality is a different thing with respect to cheating. Like, of course, even in homosexual relationships, people cheat on each other. It's nothing exclusive to heterosexual normal relationships. So 495 people were sort of investigated through a participant pool. They were recruited or through Reddit message boards, with relationship themes. So they were asked about the primary question: why did you do it? Why did you cheat? And the analysis revealed 8 key reasons, which I'm not going to spoil them now. First, let's understand a few statistical figures from the research itself. So around 2/3 of participants admitted to expressing affection towards their new partner. Okay, so we let's first of all assign the terminology. So of course, in the relationship, there are primarily, like, if you go to the fundamental part, there are two people in minimum, right? There's a man and a woman in a heterosexual relationship. So when a person cheats, it could be either the man or the woman. When they cheat, a third person gets involved, and this is the new partner that we call. So this affair now has a third party to it, which does concern the first and the second party both. So 2/3 of participants shared that they had expression towards their new they had affection towards their new partner, and about the same proportion, which is 61%, engaged in sexually explicit dialogue with the new partner. Now roughly 4 out of 10 people had intimate conversations, while 1%, while 10%, so 1 in 10 people, 1 in 10 persons said I love you to the partner. So we kind of seeing this decrease in, as the activity of intimacy increases, we see this decrease in number, right? Because so you can see sort of a base forming. 2/3 of participants, that's around 66%, had affection towards the partner. Similar, started talking sexually with the partner. And now this figure goes down to 4 out of 10, which is 40%. They had intimate conversations, right? So we're talking about sexting, or talking face to face. And 1 in 10, now this decreases more. So we get 10% said I love you. So this journey from just seeking interest, affection, to actually going as far as saying I love you, which is a big commitment for people. In India, it isn't much. I love you is just a gesture of loving someone or having affection towards them, intimacy. I love you is very common in India, but in Western culture, in other countries, primarily Western cultures, I love you is a big decision. So this sets up a lot of things. And of course, those who reported feeling less connected to their primary partner, experience greater emotional intimacy in the affair. So perhaps as a way of fulfilling that need. So this is also interesting. The new partner shows more adventure, shows more affection, new spirit for life. So it does tell you about the human mind. We're always after new things, right? Things that excite us. And once we're done and bored with that thing, we move on to a new thing. It's just the way our psychology is designed, which we'll talk about at the end of the video in the neuroscience part. Now, those who cheated because of anger, which is a factor, we'll talk about that. Usually they did as a wish to seek revenge on their partner. Lack of love or need for variety as well, which are the few more reasons, had a longer affair. So in affairs that had an anger part to it or a vengeance part to it, the affair lasted longer. And those who were motivated by a certain situation, right, they cheated on their partner because of something special or unique or something exclusive, not something common you see in typical infidelity. Their affair duration was shorter and they ended it earlier. So the person might be drunk, high, overwhelmed with something, not thinking clearly. These people tended to end the affair quickly, earlier, in an earlier stage, then rather than escalating it. Also the study showed that women also had a longer affair than men on average. Of course, outlier cases, of course, it's the opposite thing, but on average, women had longer affairs than men. That also tells us about about our psychologies. I'm not being sexist in the sense, but the study does show that, right? We have results for that. Of course, those who came clean were more likely to have cheated out of anger or neglect rather than sexual desire or variety. So this suggests that their confession was possibly a form of retribution. As I told you, it's vengeance, and they came clean with it. So that's interesting. It shows that there's this boldness in the vengeance-based affairs. Now, those cheating because of lack of love went on more public dates and displayed more PDAs, displays of public displays of affection towards their partner. Because cheating on your partner is something that takes balls. I'll say that it does take balls, because it's not easy to lie, to deceive, and also cheating is a big thing. I mean, it's very immoral. I am totally against it, but just look at the study, right? It's telling a lot of things about us which are very obvious, but we sort of never think about them, right? They're very obvious in infidelity, but it tells you a story of our human minds. And of course, another thing, on the other hand, situational cheaters, people who cheated because of the situation, were less inclined to cheat out in the open. So there's no public display of that. They're not showing off the world, oh, I'm cheating, and the world doesn't need to know. But still, there's this element where they don't want to cheat out in the open. Perhaps because they hoped that they would return to the primary relationship without getting caught, which means they have some morals with that. They realized something was wrong. They were doing something wrong. So they had that moral sense that, I was doing wrong. So I'll get back to my primary relationship without telling the partner, of course, because that's going to hurt them. And the last fact is, surprisingly, only 1 in 5 of relationships, that's 20%, ended because of the affair. So relationship, it could be just a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship or a husband-wife relationship, but 20% ended because of the affair. So that's still a minority, but 20% is a lot in terms of the numbers that we see. The same number of couples, so around 21%, stayed together despite their primary partner finding out, while slightly more, around 28%, stayed together without their partner discovering their infidelity. So there are two aspects of this. Same number of couples, 21% lived off the relationship despite their partner finding out that they cheated. So that and the other path tells you that they broke up. So of course, there's two choices that the primary partner, the one who was cheated on, could take. One is a path of where they could trust their partner who cheated and let the relationship continue. And then there's the second path where they would leave them. So no trust, of course, trust broken down. So they leave their partner. And the remaining relationships broke up for non-cheating reasons. So other things, the normal breakup stuff that we see. Yeah. And now coming to the 8 reasons that the study did, discover why people cheat. What are the reasons people cheat? Number 1 is anger or revenge, which comes out of spite, right? When you're angry, you're full of emotions, full of adrenaline, and you take a quick snap decision without thinking much, right? That's your limbic system in the play. It's angry, you're angry. There's emotions running. So the basic thing to understand is, this is a situation where it's like they hurt me, so now I'll hurt them. It's basic anger revenge, right? Typical human nature. Now, frustration in a relationship could be something that goes towards the anger situation that we are talking about, right? When your partner doesn't seem to understand you or your needs, right? Anger at a partner who isn't around much, it was also something they saw. So distancing that's, it's one of the reasons long distance relationships are crap. I'm going to tell you that. It doesn't work. It's a fact. It doesn't work. So the thing is, humans are material, right? We react to things that are in front of us with us, right? Why do we mourn when someone dies? Like, even the most spiritual people mourn for their loved ones, their deceased ones, because they're not around. And humans are material, species. We are material, like we have that animal part in us. Anger when a partner doesn't have much to give physically or emotionally. So this again, it's like it goes two ways, right? A relationship doesn't go one way. And also they observed anger or frustration after an argument. Now arguments are very common in relationships, even in husband wife relationships, but it's again, it's what you say could screw up things pretty bad. So these were some factors of our anger revenge reason. Second reason was falling out of love. I don't know whether that can happen, although it does happen. It's one of the reasons relationships end. It's one of the reasons we are seeing a massive surge in divorces, like in the modern world. So what happens is, when you first fall in love with someone, and of course I understand love has different definitions, but we'll take the simplest definition there is. So when you are in love with someone, you really like them, you would do anything for them. So you might experience emotions like passion, excitement, and all of the words that I'm using: passion, excitement, that hunger for adventure. All of these are related to the brain chemical that we know as dopamine, right? Dopamine, these sudden rushes of dopamine, they can simply come from getting a text from your part, even from your loved one, your new love. It's that, it surges through your brain when you get that text or that missed call, or when you see them in the hallway in your college or whatever. So that's the dopamine rush, right? But the intensity of these feelings usually fade over time, which is when the serotonin part takes over, right? I'm going to talk about that at the end. So falling out of love is another reason why people cheat, because they sort of find means of escaping out of the relationship without actually taking any action that could hurt the other partner. So that's why it's called cheating, right? You take different methods to do something that can be done in a moral, ethical way, but people cheat. Keep in mind, of course, that falling out of love doesn't mean you don't love each other. You see, you can still love your partner without the fact that you have fallen out of love. Okay, it's like I was watching this episode of You, the Netflix series You, and Joe and Love were, making it work in season 3, I believe. In season 3, they were making it work because of their child, because of the kid. Of course, that did not mean they did not love each other. They did not love each other. They just fell out of love. They did not love each other, and yet they were loving each other. So one is the instantaneous, the natural loving each other, and the second one is the forced one, when you're forced to do that for the sake of someone or for the sake of something. The third factor that they discovered was situational factors and opportunity. So simply having an opportunity to cheat, just an opportunity, can cause infidelity. It's more likely to happen. So this doesn't mean everyone who has the opportunity to cheat will do so. It's about the time, it's about the circumstances. So other factors often add to the motivation to cheat. So there's not just one thing, there's a lot of factors working inside. And I'll give you some examples. For example, having a lot to drink and sleeping with someone after a night out constitutes to cheating, but it's not the cheating because of a major reason. It was situational, right? You drank a lot, you're out of your senses, you slept with someone, and so that constitutes to cheating on your partner. Or wanting physical comfort after a distressing event, right? You're stressed out, you have a fellow member, and both of you are stressed out, and in that moment you start to have physical comfort, you seek physical comfort. Or you're living or working in an environment where there's a lot of physical touch and emotional connection. Usually you'll see places that have these elements are nightclubs, are bars, are restaurants. Even your workplaces have these circumstances, like people working late in the night, when there are not much people around, and you have those those moments where you're touching each other in contact, that's where cheating also happens. So situation is a big factor. And of course, situational affairs or situational infidelity usually doesn't last longer, as we talked about before. Fourth reason is commitment issues. And yes, this is a big one. It's very obvious. It's possible for two people to have very different ideas about what their relationship is about. So for a partner, the relationship might be casual, just hanging out, just having fun. And for the second partner, it might be more deep, a deeper connection to it, inclined towards, exclusivity. So it's a relationship, a labeled relationship. So these differing definitions could also cause cheating, right? Other reasons for commitment related infidelity might include, let's say, lack of interest, in committing long term. For some people, long term relationships just aren't their cup of tea. So they just, in order to exit, they cheat, right? As I told you, finding a way out. Wanting a more casual relationship can also, make people cheat. And this also this concept of open marriages, which I find total BS. I'm gonna be honest. Open marriages are the worst. They're not even marriages. Like, if you're opening up your marriage, it fundamentally is not a marriage then, right? Because you're inviting other partners to get involved. That's a Western construct. Of course, it's stupid. It's totally BS, as I told you. But people who open up the relationships do that for, of course, variety, and because they're not able to commit to a single partner. We'll talk about that. Or people wanting a way out of relationship also have commitment issues, right? So they tend to cheat. The fifth reason is an important one: unmet needs. So these unmet needs can lead to frustration, as I told you. And when a person is frustrated, they don't use their reasoning. They succumb to their carnal needs, their emotional needs, which is contrary to our logic system, right? So this can lead to cheating as well. Now, unmet sexual needs might happen a lot, and they do happen a lot, even in our Indian ecosystem, like in the Indian economy. I should not say economy, right? In the Indian subcontinent, yeah, people usually have, not people, women have unmet sexual needs. And of course, this is a consequence of lack or even absence, total absence of sex education in schools, which is still considered a stigma in modern society, in modern Indian society. So people with unmet sexual needs, or the partner with unmet sexual needs, they would reach out to other people who could do that for them. It's one of the reasons people cheat a lot. Sex is an important factor, and it's one of the reasons why therapists always, a couples therapy always, like, sort of focuses on or tries to address one important point, which is the physicality between the husband and wife. And so that is when a relationship could, come crashing down. Of course, if your partner doesn't seem interested in what you think, what you feel, what your opinions are about things, or what you have to say, you might start sharing this whole thing with someone who is interested, right? You look for other means of doing that. And see, this is a big challenge in finding a partner, even in Indian society, to find someone who is interested in things that you are interested in. Because you see, opposites attract is a BS idea. It's a good idea. It's a thing in physics, but in real life, in relationships, you're better off if you have the same, at least some inclination or some interest, common interest between your partner, right? That you could have a bridge where you can make a connection. If you don't have any interest, then what are you doing? Get a dog or a cat. Relationship isn't for you then, right? So this is the reason. And the sixth reason is, of course, a very obvious one: sexual desire. It's something that humans have. It's part of us. So a simple desire to have sex can motivate some people to cheat. And of course, this doesn't mean it's just a need, they want to do that. Even in partners, as I told you, unmet needs is part of this. It is an idea that relates to this. But even without that, even when you have needs that are met, you're satisfied with the relationship that you have, the sexual part of it. Even with that, some people tend to want for more, or for better forms of sexual, better forms of physicality. So this does play a big part in infidelity. Even people who have sexually fulfilling relationships might still want to have more sex with other people. And of course, this is something, the root cause is daddy or mommy issues. Yeah, so that is it, right? It's something, it's a root cause, it's a more root cause than that. Of course, this might result from a high level of sexual desire, which is a biological thing. Some people tend to have more testosterone, or in terms of females, more progesterone and estrogen, which differs in individuals, which varies. So it's a biological thing, and of course, not necessarily any sexual or intimate issues in the relationship. Because of that, this could happen. It's biology. It does it. People have different forms of bodies, different forms of things going on in their bodies. So variability, we do see variation in that. And the second last, so the seventh factor is wanting variety. And of course, this is in tie with sexual desire. So the desire for variety often relates to sex, right? You want variety in your sexual relationship, in your sexual life. Variety might also mean different conversations or styles of communication. It's not always about the sex. It's also about the intimacy, your connection that you make with the partner. It could be non-sexual activities that difference in that. For example, your one partner doesn't like to go out to parties, and the second partner does. So that's a differing, right? There's a difference in those non-sexual activities. Attraction to other people. Okay, so guys, if you are doing that and you're in a relationship, please let me suggest to you, keep down your nazar niche rakho. Keep down your vision. Don't, like, I know it's impossible to fend from that, it's impossible to avoid doing that, but you are attracted to other people when you see them, right? Vision is something that's fundamental to why people cheat. Vision is something very important. Now, I'm not saying that blind people don't cheat, but vision is important. And of course, relationships with other people in addition to their current partner, right? That's also variety, isn't it? People want variety with that. Attraction is another big part of variety. Like, people can be attracted to many types of people, but that doesn't necessarily stop, just because you're in a relationship. People still want variety, and it's an innate thing that we humans have. We want variety in everything. It's just the way our neural system is designed. Now, some people in monogamous relationships. Now, monogamy means you have a single partner, right? You're committed to a single partner. Typical marriage, the best model that we have, right? The most sustaining model that we have. So some people in monogamous relationships might have a hard time not acting on those feelings of attraction, which is a good thing, right? Because even when they're attracted to someone outside of their marriage, they still do not go that way, avoid that way, for the sake of their marriage, for the sake of their partner. These people are, of course, I'm going to respect them. These people are brave. It takes strong will to do that. It's not easy to be attracted to someone else and not act on it. It's a hard thing to do, right? Because then you're not thinking with your brain, you're thinking with something else, which is more powerful in generating emotions, in sort of influencing your decisions, right? Especially in guys. So yeah. And of course, the last reason is low self-esteem, which does make sense. When you have low self-esteem, you might overthink a lot, you might not have confidence. So that typically becomes a trouble in a relationships. When you don't have confidence that your part in that relationship is important to that relationship, which is where low self-esteem originates from, then you might end up letting your partner cheat, which is a thing. Letting your partner cheat, you've become so I should say incompetent in the fact that you're not confident in your part of the relationship and your relationship as a whole. So you let your partner cheat. and then you blame your partner when the blame was on you. If you were that incompetent, you might feel empowered, attractive, confident, or successful, right? These are qualities of high esteem. So automatically your secondary part, your other partner, your other half would have low self-esteem, right? So these things, the feeling of empowerment, the feeling of confidence, attraction, these things can build up your self-esteem and sort of create ways for you to cheat even more, right? And of course, receiving admiration and approvals from someone new. Of course, that's the whole dopamine system gets to the job, right? Making you excited. And this can seem different and exciting. So, your self-esteem rises, and of course, that opens ways to cheating. Now, this was the 8 reasons that the study concluded why people cheat. But there's another part that people often overlook, and that is the neuroscience part, the neurochemistry of our brain. We are doing all of these things, acting out of anger, having variety, having sexual unmet needs, having low self-esteem, all of these things. These aren't just enough to explain why people do that. There's the neuroscientific part as well. So let's start off with two things: romantic love and infatuation. Almost the same terms, right? They're not so much as emotions as they are motivational drives. And what motivational drives are things that drive the person on the basis of reward. So you do understand that a brain has a reward system. It's like, it's the reason reinforcement was observed, right? In not only in dogs, not only in Pavlov's dog experiment, but reward systems are the fundamental part of a child's development phase or progress. So when your child does something wrong, you hit them, right? When your child does something great, exceptional job, 100 ke 100 le aaya, right? Great marks in the exam, you get a chocolate. So that's rewarding, right? You're rewarding the child. So the brain reacts quickly to reward systems. And infatuation, attraction, romantic love, right? These are not emotions, they are motivational drives. Now, there are some neurotransmitters that are involved in this whole process. The first up is epinephrine, right? Epinephrine is related to adrenaline rushes, right? It causes the adrenaline rush that makes your heart beat faster. You have those palpitation. You have those, palpation. What's the word? Is it palpitation? Yeah, you have those sort of that feeling, right? When your heart starts beating faster, your blood pressure rises. You're suddenly flushed, right? Your face is flushed, your breathing quickens. That moment when you are in association with a person, right, who you are attracted towards. Second up is dopamine, of course, which is associated with pleasure, motivation, concentration, all these things. It has been shown, dopamine has been shown to work in the reward centers of the brain, right? So that's why it's called the reward hormone, right? It's associated with reward, dopamine. Now, high levels of dopamine are associated with attraction and feeling sexy. Right. And third is serotonin. Serotonin is sort of like a long-term hormone, right? It doesn't react to short-term things. It's known as the feel-good neurotransmitter, and it drops dramatically during periods of new love. So that's, falling out of love, as I told you, the first reason why people cheat. Serotonin plays in that. So dopamine, new love, you're suddenly so excited, and eventually when जब आपको उसकी आदत हो जाती है, okay, it's done for, okay, it's nothing new, nothing exciting, then serotonin starts, that's when serotonin starts acting up. You aren't happy. It's a feel good neurotransmitter. I know it's a misnomer, it's sort of a misnomer, but serotonin talks about the long term, and you understand, the brain understands, okay, this is nothing new for me. So dopamine levels go down, serotonin starts acting, and then you don't feel enough attracted, you don't feel enough good. I mean, you might be happy, but you don't have that part, that material part of your brain where okay, you're like, okay, I'm so good, right? This whole serotonin thing, it's linked to the obsessiveness people tend to feel when they can't stop thinking about their new partner. That's where serotonin is acting up. So dopamine was just the first trick to get that engine running, and then serotonin acts as the feel good neurotransmitter. You know, when the moon's seeming a little large and there's butterflies all around, that's the cause of serotonin, not dopamine. Dopamine is sudden, it's quick, you can't even understand when it surges through your blood from the brain. You can't understand that. And the fourth hormone, which is the fourth neurotransmitter, it's a molecule which is one of the most important things to understand cheating, why people cheat. It's called PEA, or phenylethylamine. And what it is an adrenaline like substance that speeds up the flow of information between neurons. Okay, so the synapse is this information exchange between neurons, where neurotransmitters are shared between neurons, and PEA speeds that up. So it's like a catalyst, right? It speeds it up. Now in with this PEA, with the release of PEA in your body, it triggers the process of attraction, right, to help us pay attention to the love feelings. And that's why PEA is also known as the love molecule, because it is what initiates these flood of chemicals into the brain, along with norepinephrine, epinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, to create the feelings of euphoria. That's the word I was looking for, euphoria, and infatuation, when we're highly attracted to someone. So PEA also helps you focus on the important things. So it's like when you're talking to your new love, right, your crush. So you're talking to them and you sort of start noticing everything was going around them, right? You're noticing, okay, she's twirling her hair. You're noticing, okay, he's rubbing his stubble beard or whatever. He's really looking into me. So that happens because of PEA. It alerts the system. As I told you, it's an adrenaline like substance. So epinephrine and PEA, phenylethylamine, go hand in hand. All of these, it's a system of chemicals that do their work in this situation. So when do people cheat why do people cheat in terms of neuroscience? So when new love fades, neuroscientists have determined that after a period of anywhere between 6 months to 2 years, okay, the brain downshifts its response, and the production of stimulating chemicals and these levels of neurotransmitters like PEA start to drop off in this period of 6 months to 2 years, right? It starts to drop off, right? So your new love, you're excited, and then slowly it fades away, right? It is the body's innate wisdom to turn down the volume of PEA. Why is that? Because if it wasn't that, if it weren't the fact that this was happening, because it cannot maintain this lust craze state forever, or people would eventually collapse with exhaustion. Why exhaustion? You see, this whole process, it takes up a lot of energy. You are putting out a lot of adrenaline based neurotransmitters in your body, and you don't want that all the time, right? In the long run especially. It's like when people tell you, okay, don't drink coffee, a lot of coffee for a longer period of time. It's going to affect your health. Your BP is gonna hit the roof. Your BP is gonna hit the charts. Your blood pressure, your heart rate, all of that. It could give you a cardiac arrest or a heart attack, all of that. So the same thing goes with this. If you don't have a system to limit the release of these adrenaline based neurotransmitters, then your body would collapse with exhaustion. It's a lot of adrenaline in your body, what epinephrine does is it speeds up certain things, and it, like your heartbeat, your blood pressure, which is not good for the body. We know that high BP or hypertension, it's not good for the body. So this whole thing, it's a protective system to stop that state and eventually protect the body and the brain. So it's a beautiful thing of nature why this happens. So fading of new love isn't something bad. It isn't something for to blame on people, right? It's not in their hands. It's a biological counter maneuver. It's a biological fallback operation. It's a fail safe. Now, for some people, the withdrawal from these chemicals of infatuation can drive them, and that's where this cheating comes, right? Can drive them to look for other sex partners, or to recreate that high that they got from when they met their new partner. So now they're craving for what? Dopamine, right? It's the same hormone that we talk about. Sorry, it's the same neurotransmitter that is mentioned in substance abuse, right? Or sexual, what's that called? It's like when you have that problem, right? You're always thinking about sex. So in these things, in these processes, dopamine is, of course, since it's a reward based neurotransmitter, people often go after that, or they look for, it's like why people can't quit smoking, or when they have it's like you quit smoking for a few months, you're not smoking, you're abstaining from that, but when you take that off of smoke again, it's heaven level it's heaven level emotions for you. And the reason is dopamine, right? It's short term, it happens quickly, and it reconnects to that old stage where the reward system gets activated, right? So you start doing that again, it becomes a habit. Now in some individuals, the need to feel that rush of new love, dopamine based love, right, keeps them seeking out extramarital affairs, right? It does happen. Now, second thing, what if I told you our brain has a self-control network? Yes, I'm talking self-control, right? All of us have some kind of a self-control embedded in our body and in our brain. So our brain does have a self-control network, and it is sort of a balancing act between two brain regions. One is what we call the deep limbic system, and limbic system is something that is associated with thinking without doing without thinking, acting on your emotions, acting on your anger. All of that is concerned with the limbic system. So the deep limbic system motivates you to seek out pleasurable activities, right? Seeking out love, seeking out drugs, in some cases seeking out physicality. And then there's other regions like the prefrontal cortex, which makes you think twice before doing something. That's the rational part of your brain, right? The prefrontal cortex, which thinks twice before engaging in risky behavior, right? So it's the smart part of the brain. And what risky behaviors? Well, extramarital affairs. So this is a balance between your limbic system and your prefrontal cortex. And of course, when your PFC, the prefrontal cortex, is low in activity, what's going to happen? This balance goes, right? This balance goes, and your limbic system now has the upper hand. And so people give in to their impulsive behaviors of the limbic system without thinking of the consequences. It's one of the reasons why people cheat. You'd be asking, don't you have a brain? Didn't you think before acting on your carnal senses? And you cannot blame the guy. Like if his PFC, if his prefrontal cortex is low in activity, then he is going to give in to his limbic system, right? It's a process in your body. And of course, I'm not justifying infidelity, just so you know. People can control this balance. They can maintain that balance. There are things that people can do. So this does happen because of this breaking of the balance. And brain imaging studies show that people with low activity in the prefrontal cortex are more likely to get divorced. So it isn't a causality, it's a correlation, but it does show that when you don't think before doing something, before taking a risk, well, you're gonna end up bad, end up divorced. And of course, low activity in the prefrontal cortex is a hallmark of ADHD, right? Attention deficit hyperactive disorder. And a survey did find that 39% of men and 40% of women with this condition had at least one physical affair, which is much higher. One more physical affair, which is much higher numbers than in the general population, right? So prefrontal cortex plays a major role in making you think from here. When in fact, in even the deep limbic system exists here in our brain. It's all part of the brain. Hence the neuroscience. Now, unfaithful brains are different, and this was a consequence of a study that was done in 2017. It was titled "Differences in Neural Response to Romantic Stimuli in Monogamous and Non-Monogamous Men." Okay, so it's a study in men. Now, brain imaging studies have also found, with context to this study that I mentioned, that the brains of men who are monogamous, right, one partner, single marriage, it's like a marriage, differ from those of men who cheat, right? So, what was the difference? Well, they found that when men looked at romantic images, so it's like couple holding hands, gazing into each other's eyes, those beautiful things that couples do, right? Brain activation differed between the faithful and unfaithful ones. How did it differ? The research indicated that monogamous men with a single partner, showed more reward related neural activity when viewing romantic pictures compared to non-monogamous men. And now, non-monogamous, of course, includes people who are cheating, so infidelity, and of course, people who have more than one partners, like polyamorous marriages. People who have an open marriage, who have multiple partners. So monogamous men, of course, are the true chads, the true giga chads. They showed more reward-related neural activity to these images, right, when viewing romantic pictures. So the romance part is stronger in monogamous men. And of course, before we end this podcast, an important thing as well. There was another study in 2019 which was titled "Higher Testosterone Levels Are Associated with Unfaithful Behavior in Men." Okay, now testosterone. People usually have this thinking that testosterone does do, like, it has a major effect on men, which of course it does. It's the defining factor of manliness, of manhood. But it was found in this study that men with high testosterone levels were more likely to have extramarital affairs than men with lower levels. So the more testosterone that you have, the more chance, or the likelier you are, the more likely you are to cheat, to have extramarital affairs, right? Because you see, in this whole debate about masculinity and being a man, testosterone now doesn't play a bigger role that it did before. So even people with low testosterone are making marriages work better than people who have high testosterone. Of course, testosterone isn't the one factor that decides how good a marriage functions. It might be a small part of it, a small factor. It isn't a big part, and the research does suggest that even the men with high testosterone, so-called masculine men, they were more likely to have extramarital affairs. What happens in these people? Okay, so high testosterone levels are associated with lower empathy and a high sex drive. Where does this come from? Well, evolution. And evolution in the sense that human beings, when after Adam and Eve, we evolved in certain ways, like not in the way Homo sapiens, evolved from Neanderthals and other hominids, but in the sense that biology, the biology of our kind was influenced because of certain things, because of genetics and the climate, the environment, all of that, which could be right. So lower empathy and a higher sex drive. So which means people usually in our older societies, when we were hunter gatherers, people with high testosterone levels were the alphas, right? They hunted for food. They protected their wives and their children from predators, from animals, from other alphas who would go crazy. So this of course is a basic thing. High testosterone levels, people with high testosterone levels of course would have lower empathy, because they're more of the protective kind. I'm going to fight you. And a high sex drive, because these alphas had more partners to them, so they could sort of populate their stronger genes, or become stronger role models for society. And of course, a strong man would become a stronger role model for the coming generation, right? So people with these had this whole thing. Now, this could be the prescription for having an affair: lower empathy and a high sex drive, right? Getting divorced, losing half your net worth, and visiting your children every other weekend is just an example, which could be a reason of this. You don't have control over that because of your high testosterone levels. You have more unfaithful behavior with that. Now, subsample analysis indicates a positive association between testosterone and infidelity only to be present in men without sexual dysfunction. Now, sexual dysfunction opens up this whole outlier cases in this study. So they did not focus on that much. They focused on typical men without any sexual dysfunctions, and they found this. Now, I would like to share some points from the study. Several studies, including the one I told you about, have concluded that unfaithful behavior is more common in men compared to women. Remember when I told you in the beginning of the podcast, like in the mid part, that women tended to have longer affairs than men. So that's over time. And if you talk about this one, so unfaithful behavior is more common in men compared to women. There's a difference between length of affair and commonality. Men are more prone to cheating on their partners, on women or their partners in that sense. So from an evolutionary point of view, as I told you, gender dissimilarities within the tendency of extra pair sexual intercourse. So what does this mean? What it means is that these gender dissimilarities, why men cheat more, can be explained through the reproductive benefits for men. With higher testosterone levels, you have a higher sex drive. You want to reproduce more, to populate your genes throughout, when having various short-term matings, of course, to potentially lead to a higher number of offspring. And this is from an evolutionary point of view. If we remove that, right? By the way, before removing that, this point in evolution is supported by another fact, that men's sperm is plentiful due to generation of millions per day, right? Which leads to high libido. Because in a woman, it's just a single egg. It's production of an egg. And in men, it's a production of millions of sperms per day, which leads to high libido. So libido is, of course, the sexual tendency, desire. It was also shown that the sex hormone testosterone facilitates mating related behavior in terms of competitive behavior towards other males, right? Alphas versus alphas. There cannot be two alphas, right? There is only one alpha, hence the word alpha. Of course, considering that men have on average 6 times higher testosterone than women. Now you would think, women have testosterone? Of course they do. Men have estrogen as well. That's a fact. Yeah, men have estrogen. Higher levels of testosterone usually display, like in women with higher levels of testosterone, you would see them angry, sort of offensive, or like masculine women, And in men that have high levels of estrogen, you would see traits of being emotional, being vulnerable. And of course, I'm not being sexist. It's just what neuroscience teaches us. So of course, 6 times higher testosterone levels in men than women. So that it logically tells you that men are more prone to cheating. And research also suggests that men who are involved in a romantic relationship show 21% lower testosterone levels than single men. That's curious, right? It makes you think. So all the bachelors or the single guys, you guys got 21% more testosterone levels. Yeah, I know it's weird. It's weird. The study does show that, right? So people I think the explanation, of course, is that single men are always looking out for a partner, so they need to be on their toes all the time, attentive to details, and of course their testosterone levels would be high in the sense that they're looking out for a partner, so they're spewing their confidence and their all around them. And committed people don't need to do that. So automatically their testosterone level would go down. They're not looking for a partner. They already have one. So even from an evolutionary point of view, yeah, they have a partner, they have safety, right? They don't need that extra effort to find people for mating. Right, and of course, another the last point. Well, fatherhood additionally lowers endogenous testosterone levels. So fatherhood, even now we're progressing more after the marriage part and the relationship part. When you become a father, your testosterone levels endogenous, so that's inside of you, it goes down as well. Endogenous, it doesn't mean, like what endogenous means is as in the blood, as in the intrinsic part of you. You still have hair growing, you still have pubic hair, facial hair, all of that, but the endogenous part, or the things that sort of um, changes your behavior, it impacts that. Fatherhood lowers that, so you have now so you now have less responsibility to populate your genes, because you've done that, you have a kid now. The It's no requirement. So see, in all of the sense that whatever we discussed in this podcast, cheating is a universal factor. Infidelity is something that isn't only observed in the rich class people, it is also observed in the poor segment of society, the lower economic people as well. And it's a universal factor. It's not something that comes because of only an environment people are brought up in, or a country, or a nation, or certain society. Infidelity is universal, it's everywhere. From a big metropolitan city to a village, people cheat all the time. It's in our genes, it's in our DNA. Not, I'm sorry, it's not in our genetics, it's in our brain. Yeah, right. It's a neural thing. And when you have neurochemistry going on, that does create this sort of thing, then of course it influences your decisions, hence the psychology part. So in conclusion, infidelity is caused by 8 factors that we discuss, right? And not only those 8 factors, but the underlying neurochemistry of our brain. Why exactly those things happen? Because we have this balanced setup of our limbic system and our prefrontal cortex. Whenever the levels of PFC go down, then you start acting on your carnal senses rather than what should be done rationally and with a thought. So let's end the podcast here. Hope you liked it. This was a new and entirely new topic for me. I haven't talked about it. It's a good thing for a dating podcast for sure. If you want more episodes like this on psychology, or love or dating, just to understand why people do that, or about relationships, let me know in the comments below. And of course, next week I'm gonna be back with let's see, some other topic relating pertaining to our human species. So sorry for that. See you next week. Goodbye.